Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome in to another edition of Open for Business. Big 12 is open for business, and the Big 12 is absolutely unhinged this week. This has been just an unhinged week all the way around in the Big 12 between Pocketknife Gate, which we are going to talk about. This has turned more wild than I ever anticipated that it possibly could have been. The battle between Lance Leipold and Texas Tech. But the Big 12 is also out here just totally owning people on Twitter, even without Clark Williams, who's off to SMU. Congratulations to him on a new job. But man, that's before we even get to the action on the field. I've got an insane Holy War stat for you tonight. Is this the biggest Holy War ever? Kyle Whittingham, speaking of, this maybe is unfair to call unhinged, but Kyle Whittingham was sure doing his best to try and ratchet up some of the discourse surrounding the Holy War this week. And oh, by the way, big matchup between Texas Tech and Arizona State with all the focus around Lubbock on tortillas and pocket knives. They do have to go play a huge game this week, and it appears that Sam Leavitt is going to be available. I don't want to speak too soon, but it definitely looks that way right now for ASU. We've got questions about whether or not Baron Morton is going to play quarterback for Texas Tech. So there is a lot to cover here, my friends. A lot to cover tonight. So thank you all for joining me. Please like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Both of those things are totally free. If you are so inclined, you can donate to the channel and get your question or comment on the show tonight guaranteed by clicking the $ below the chat box. You drop in a super chat that way. I will read your question or comment. If you're not watching live and you want to pop in a question or comment, I will kick off the next show with it. You can do so at John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. So appreciate everybody who does that. And of course, the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter has been rolling right along. It's ofbnews.com, people, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video if you would like to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. 5,300 now plus Big 12 subscribers, and they get it twice a week to their inbox totally for free. So thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody who does that and supports in that way. Okay. I've got to, I feel like, take a deep breath before we get to all this. Take all this in tonight. What happened? Whew, okay. So Texas Tech fans defended their honor fiercely, fervently, and now, as we've come to find out, rightfully, after the accusations from Lance Leipold that a pocket knife was thrown from the stands among a bevy of tortillas. Lance Leipold's taken a big L here, and it's not even just the $25,000 that Kansas was fined for all of this. The plot has thickened big time. The plot has thickened big time. Okay? So for those of you who are perhaps not that online, in which case, congratulations, or maybe have just forgotten since this happened on Saturday, Texas Tech beats Kansas, right? And after the game, a game in which Texas Tech, by the way, had 30 yards in penalties because of things being thrown onto the field, Lance Leipold had a with Joey McGuire.
Coach, I can't do anything about it. You want me to do something about it? I just heard. I know. And I said I got it. Coach, you.
Yeah. Pretty fiery confrontation between the two there. Lance Leipold very upset, not just about tortillas, as we would come to find out in the post game, but also about a pocket knife that he said was thrown onto the field. Okay. Actually let that fly in the post game press conference. And that had Tech fans apoplectic. And look, my stance at the time was pretty middle of the road. Like, hey, I get why Texas Tech fans are reacting that way, because there is a long history of other fan bases, coaches, teams, etc., accusing Tech fans of throwing different items that has never really been proven. And, you know, after a while, you start to develop a reputation, and that breeds more of that, right? Like more people making accusations like that. However, I said on the other side, like if a pocket knife really was thrown, I would certainly be upset about it too. If I were a Kansas fan, my stance the whole time has been, I would rather my coach not be making that the story after the game. Instead, the story that, like, we've got to get better because we got punked pretty good in the game. But I also was like, look, it seems like a very weird thing to make up. Like, how and why would you make up a pocket knife without any proof of it or whatever? That seems like a very bizarre story to be telling. Well, I think we now have all the answers. Like, we now understand how exactly this happened. And it's pretty insane, man. It's pretty insane. Okay. So the Big 12 conducts an investigation. They released a statement earlier today that said, hey, both sides are fined 25 grand. Texas Tech's fine is for repeated instances of objects being thrown onto the playing surface. So it's the tortillas, right? Well, Kansas, this is the Big 12's wording, Kansas has been fined for disparaging comments about the conference and a member institution and an inaccurate statement regarding a pocket knife by head coach Lance Leipold. At the beginning of the year, who had that on your bingo card? That would come out in an official release from the Big 12. An official statement, or an inaccurate statement, rather, regarding a pocket knife by head coach Lance Leipold. All right. So that was part one of the result that we got today. Then our guy, Don Williams, went to work. Now, Don Williams has been doing this for a long time at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. He's an excellent journalist. I read his work regularly. I really appreciate and enjoy him. He files a freedom, like FOIA's this thing, Freedom of Information Act or whatever, open records request to get the video and the back and forth between Tech and the conference that have been going on here. And, wouldn't you know, Texas Tech released that pretty quick. Sometimes you do that, and universities will drag their feet and wait a really long time to release it. Interestingly, Texas Tech was pretty eager to get that out there. So Don Williams gets the video of it, and he writes a story that says, new video released by Texas Tech shows a Kansas football player pick up an object from a spot on the sideline after a Jayhawks staff member had possibly just dropped an object at the same spot. The object is a closed pocket knife. There's no disagreement on that. Okay. So it says Tech athletic officials who reviewed the video circled the unidentified Kansas staff member and illustrated with two arrows that his right hand moved away from his pants pocket and he purportedly dropped something as he proceeded up the sideline. His actions are shown in ground level and high angle video. All right. And I went and watched that video, and it's tough to see a whole lot going on there. Then David Collier, who had that initial video of the confrontation, another guy who I think does a great job, he pops out like a different angle. All right. So what we have here, what I'm about to show you, you guys be prepared for this. This is the Zapruder film. This is the Lubbock Zapruder film that you are about to see of the Kansas staffer on the sideline, maybe dropping, maybe not dropping, whatever you want to believe, a pocket knife that was then later picked up by a Kansas player that was then taken to officials, and they got a 15-yard penalty out of this whole deal, okay? So here you go. Start it over for you. You'll see you see that pop up. I don't know how well you guys are even going to be able to see it through this. I realize, I understand. It's crazy. We're all looking at this. But if you do look closely at this, I wonder if I do this for you. How's that going to look through the illustration? There you go. If you look closely at this, I mean, it does. This angle, I feel like, is tougher to see. All right. But if you go to this angle, you can see a hand moving out of a pocket, and it looks like some object comes out of it pretty quickly. Okay. I'll let you guys be the judge. All right. I appreciate the way that Don was going about describing it, being very journalistic in that. It's so grainy. You can't tell for sure. But from the high angle video, you then immediately see a Kansas player walk over a few seconds later and like pick it up and hand it to somebody. Boy. Okay. This was looking bad enough, I thought, for Kansas before that video even came out. Because before the video came out, it was like, all right, Lance Leipold got a little too heated, made an accusation without any like real tangible proof. Maybe they got something wrong on how it happened. You're just kind of like, all right, that was a guy being too heated, lost his cool. Not a great look, but it is what it is. You get fined, move on. Well, now that the video's out there, it certainly leaves you wide open to speculation that this was some kind of planted object from Kansas to try and do this on purpose, which is insane if that's true. Now, again, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. You can be the determinant of that based on the evidence that we have here. I'm showing you the evidence that we have. I think Texas Tech certainly seems to believe that. I believe from the open records request stuff, it was like Kirby Hocutt was certainly insinuating that. Or at least just, hey, it was dropped here by a Kansas staffer. Maybe it's a guy just getting heavy in his pocket. He wanted to drop the pocket knife on the ground. I have no idea. What I can't fathom is that anybody on a coaching staff, like you got to be smart, man. You got to be sharp to get and stick on a college football, like Power 4 coaching staff. How anybody would think that trying to pull something like that on purpose would be, one, even all that helpful. Like, okay, if it's a 15-yard penalty, you're like, all right, in a game that you wound up losing by 4 scores or 3, was it 24 points? Either way, you lose by multiple scores. Like 15 yards was going to be the difference. And then what's your risk reward calculation there? Even if it does help you, what's the risk reward on this, man? I mean, the risk is what happened, which is just a horrible look for the program. So I don't understand how that could. That's why I tread lightly and carefully on making like straight up accusations of like, oh, that was planted on purpose, because I'm like, surely nobody is that dumb to try and do that, right? Like, surely. I'm going to give a little bit of benefit of the doubt there, but I am just showing you what we have, my friends. I'm showing you what we have. And either way, it is a terrible look for Kansas now in all of this. Lance Leipold, I mean, the statements that Kansas put out, I will say, I think struck the right tone, but this was before the video came out. Kansas, let's see, Leipold said, I accept their findings and ultimate rulings. I had an emotional reaction in the aftermath of the game and acknowledged that I need to be better. We're excited to move forward and finish our season strong. Travis Goff, the AD, said the circumstances were unfortunate. We take ownership of our emotionally charged response. Coach Leipold should not have addressed the matter publicly. That should have been handled privately with the conference and Texas Tech and not in the heat of the moment when we didn't have all the facts. I think those are both really good, kind of pitch perfect responses before we had the video. But now the video's out there and it's like raising even more questions for people. You're going to take more heat. I'm pretty stunned, man. I have a lot of respect for Lance Leipold as a football coach, man. I mean, say what you want, and I know even Kansas fans, I think, have some frustration right now about like, hey, what's our ceiling? Okay, clearly he's a good coach, but like, are we ever going to elevate beyond where we're at? I understand that that's sort of the prevailing narrative with Kansas fans right now. Look, the guy, how easy you forget. I understand fan bases do this, but how easy you forget where this thing was just like 4 years ago. Okay. Like the guy's a very good coach. I've got a ton of respect for him, but this is, the whole thing, how it unfolded before we even saw the video. And now the video is like really making me question, like what really was going on here? It's insane. And the biggest thing, God, I haven't even talked about really the main point in all of this is, very unfair to Texas Tech. And this is why Tech fans reacted as strongly as they did, and why I was the whole time trying to tread pretty carefully and lightly on this, because I'm like, I get it, Tech fans. Like, people, I've seen you be accused of the batteries and stuff before. You guys were all telling me this story of what, like the poop bus or something from Texas A&M in like 2011. Like, I've seen the stories and just like seen some of it happen in front of my own eyes of you guys getting accused of stuff. And like, I get how you're just like, look, hey, we may be a really intense fan base and student section. And like, we may be a little rough around the edges in some place, but we're not trying to throw batteries at your face. We're not trying to fling a knife at you from the stands. Like, stop with this. It gives us a bad reputation that we don't deserve. And that is totally true. Like, this is the type of thing that easily cements reputations for people, and it's totally unfair. So like, that's why, I mean, yeah, that's why Tech fans reacted as strongly as they did. And now I'm like, you guys not only had every right to, maybe you didn't react strongly enough. Maybe the conference didn't react strongly enough. They have seen the video. I mean, I guess I'll put it like that. The conference has seen the video and they decided to just fine both sides $25,000. I think a part of this is like, yeah, how do you prove that this was some ultimately like set up thing and Kansas was trying to do that? Not getting access to, I don't know if you're getting access to phones or what, like you're not going to probably be able to prove that. But I do understand some people being like, Kansas maybe a little bit lucky that it was only just a $25,000 fine. And they kind of just, this is sort of like two guys fighting at the end of a play and they just throw a flag on both dudes and say, look, whatever, this is kind of a mess. You guys both need to chill out. We'll just offsetting penalties or whatever. That's basically what happened here. It does seem like Kansas was pretty fortunate that was all that happened out of this. So, and hey, I like this. I sort of articulated this, but I wanted to give a shout out to Lux Wade on Twitter, who put it this way, and I think this is pretty apropos. Just said, let's see, we're tired about lies about our fans. The list is exhaustive. Yes, our student section is hostile. Yes, we throw tortillas out of spite. Yes, we chant curse words. We don't throw batteries. We don't destroy buses. We don't throw knives. We don't throw vapes. Wow, where'd the vape accusation come from? We don't throw frozen water bottles. I totally get that. Totally get that. Fair gripe for Texas Tech fans. You guys won. You guys won this battle emphatically. So, I suppose congratulations on that. This is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for Leipold and Kansas that they have a bye week this week. If that will allow them to just kind of duck and cover, or if it puts more speculation or gives more of a tail to the story, I don't know. I do know Texas Tech has a big game to play this week, though. So they will probably, in a lot of ways, I would think the staff be excited to just move past this story. But crazy, man. Insane. I could not believe that when we got hit with the video today. Let's see. The Smooth Toad. Thank you for being here. The Smooth Toad. Shout out to the Smooth Toad. Great picture. Justice for Joey. Big shout out, Dawn. Kansas should focus on its run defense. Reckham. Kansas does indeed need to work on its run defense. Now, the good news for Kansas is I'm not sure how much K-State on October 25th is going to challenge said run defense, if Dylan Edwards is not going to be playing, at least. But, yeah, it's been bad. It's been bad. So, justice for Joey. Big shout out to Don. Yeah, Don Williams, man, he dropped the bomb today. Like, he totally dropped the bomb today. Smooth Toad, thank you for being here, my friend. Amazingly optimistic, 4439 says, I don't know how KU and Leipold doesn't apologize to Tech instead of just saying, accept the results of the investigation. Bush League. Yeah, and some of this is like, things change when the video goes public, when the video comes out. I don't know. Be interesting to know, did Kansas think there was a chance that the video would go public when all this happened, when they released their statements? I don't know. No way of knowing that. It would be really interesting, though, right? To have some idea on that. All I know is it's not a good look. I don't know what the appropriate response is now. Before the video came out, I thought their statements were pretty appropriate. Now, having seen the video, I can understand as a Tech fan being like, "Hey, man, we deserve a little bit more than that." I can understand why you would say that for sure. Lance, what's up, Lance? Thank you for being here, Lance. Lance says, I got hit by a D-sized battery in Morgantown in the stands a few years ago. West Virginia didn't get fined. People just need to chill out. But people just need to stop throwing stuff. Yeah, I mean, the tortillas thing, I already told the story. Like, it's a tradition. And as a K-State fan, like, we were throwing tortillas back in 1998 because the national championship game was the Fiesta Bowl in Tempe. And that K-State team got to number 1, and people started throwing tortillas. You can see them in old highlights of the 98 Nebraska game at a time or two. Go look at Michael Bishop's first touchdown run on 4th and goal. You'll see tortillas hitting down close to the playing surface. I mean, it's down on the field level. So they're not the first. They're not the first. And really, you've got Texas to blame for this becoming a bigger thing in the rule because of what happened in the Georgia game last year. So, yeah, look, I can't verify or deny Lance's story, but Lance definitely has his story to tell. I will say I've been in Morgantown and multiple times, and I was on the sideline shooting video on K-State's sideline, and I never had any issues. But obviously, everybody has different experiences. Lance, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you sharing. Gentle Brutality. What's up, Gentle Brutality? Gentle Brutality says, I've heard Tex fans can be tough, but applaud the Big 12 calling out Leipold for a very defamatory comment. Yeah. Also, Texas Tech 38, Arizona State 15. Look, if Sam Leavitt doesn't play, that very well could be the story. Or the story and the score. Very well could be what happens there. I've got a lot to say about that. I think Arizona State misses a lot that goes beyond just, like X's and O's on offense when Sam Leavitt isn't there. If he is, I think at home, I mean, they could be, crazy as this sounds, they could be the first team to be within 24 of Texas Tech this year. That could happen. That definitely could happen. Appreciate you, Gentle Brutality. Zach, what's up, Zach? Zach says, I think the rule should be suspended and revisited in the offseason. I mean, it's hard for me to say, like, hey, you need to get rid of the rule to, like, not throw things on the field, especially when, again, it became a thing in college football last year. Like, you do have to protect yourself. And I think we found a workaround for it, which is, hey, you get a warning. So Tech fans, you can throw them at kickoff and keep the tradition going that way. Or you can throw them in the stands all you want, but just don't chuck them down to the field. And Lux Wade admitted it, like, we throw them in spite. Some of this has been spite to the rule. Some of that comes from, Kirby Hocutt actually set the tone on that for the way he reacted when the rule happened, so I would say that too. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle once you release it, but I don't have an issue with the rule being there, if I'm being completely honest. As long as we can have some common sense and some leniency, which it seems like there is with the warnings, to have Texas Tech still be able to utilize a tradition there. I think there's a compromise that's there, but appreciate your opinion. Appreciate you sharing, Zach. Okay. Well, so there was that Twitter controversy. Now we have another one. Many more people in here now, by the way. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, please. I appreciate all of you guys that do that. Totally free. You can contribute with a super chat. Click the $ below the chat box to do that if you want to guarantee that you make it on tonight. And John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute that way. Let's see. Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Well, speaking of Twitter spats, this one seems far in the rear view after everything that just happened with Pocketknife Gate. But the Big 12 can't get the college football world to universally respect it for anything. Think about it. When was the last time that happened? Universal respect. Until now. And they did it through Twitter.com, and it all came at the expense of one Brent Venables in Oklahoma. All right? So college football Twitter this week was just minding its own business. We're going through another week. We're about halfway through the regular season this week. And boy, did Brent Venables in Oklahoma decide to step in it. They decide to shake things up a little bit. So Brent Venables, coming off of a Red River loss, feeling some heat now. Yes, Oklahoma is 5-1, but they lost to Texas, a game that I'm sure they feel like they should have won based on the way their seasons have gone so far. And now this is the schedule coming up for Oklahoma: at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Bama, Mizzou, LSU. Good luck, Mr. Venables. Good luck with that. Especially if John Mateer is not going to be fully healthy. Anyway, a lot of close games being played in the SEC. There's been a lot made of that this year. In fact, I heard Josh Pate making this point. I think it's pretty salient. The SEC has turned into what people sort of fancy the Big 12 being like every game really close, decided by one possession, knockdown, drag out sort of a thing, whereas the Big 12 has turned more into like what the SEC was before, where you got like one or maybe two, if you want to consider Utah after what they did to Arizona State, teams at the top that can blow almost anybody out, and there's not quite as much of that depth as what we have seen in the past. But anyway, the question was asked. So Barry Trammell has been doing this for a long time. Another guy I've got a ton of respect for at the Tulsa World. He asked Brent Venables if the SEC is a one-possession league, if the fact that the SEC is a one-possession league means Oklahoma needs to learn to win one-possession games or play better to avoid them altogether. And then as a part of that answer, Brent Venables dropped this in his quote. He said, "This isn't the old Big 12 days where Oklahoma destroys everybody every single week except one game of the year." All right, one more time. This isn't the old Big 12 days where Oklahoma destroys everybody every single week except for one game of the year. Obviously, he would be referring to Texas in that, okay? Now, let's dissect this before I get to the Big 12's response, which is the whole crux of this story. Is that true for when Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator with Bob Stoops? You can certainly make that case. Lots of people have pointed out tons of losses Oklahoma had, but they won the league like 66% of the time they were in it. It's hard to argue with that, right? The Brent Venables era, however, is much different. And that is what That is what the Big 12 wanted to point out. Brent Venables as the head coach era was much different. So here's what the Big 12 got in its shot. And I got to say, as someone who appreciates a good tweet, a little trolling every now and then, this is well done. So Coach Venables lost 8 conference games in his 2 seasons in the Big 12. That is excellent work. You can see 31,000 people have liked that. You can see 6.3 million people have seen the tweet. And it's getting, there's Josh Pate with his trademarked assault. Robert Griffin III getting in there. It got everybody in there. Andy Staples from On3 was vehemently defending the Big 12 against Oklahoma fans when this happened. And that's really the point. Everybody in the college football world was loving up the Big 12 for this tweet, or at the very least having a nice laugh, except for Oklahoma fans, who were very sensitive about this. But Brandon Marcello, Joel Klatt, Brett McMurphy, John Wilner, lots of heavy hitters in the college football space were pointing out, hey, this is great work. And it's objectively great work. Regardless of how sensitive you may or may not be about this as an Oklahoma fan, regardless of what Brent Venables did as a defensive coordinator there, it's great work. That's welcome to twitter.com. This has been the wild thing about this reaction from OU fans. Guys, we understand. You don't have to tweet it 8,000 times in the replies. Yes, Brent Venables was a part of a lot of Oklahoma teams that did win a bunch of blowout games in the Big 12, or at the very least, just won the league a whole bunch. We understand that. We understand that that's what Brent Venables is really referring to there. But when you're going to be that guy and you're going to take a little shot, which is fine, but if you're going to do that, you got to understand it's now fair game for the Big 12 to come back and say, well, hey, that's great, but when you took over as the head man, you were literally mid, okay? As the kids would say, you were mid, literally mid. Lost 8 games, okay? That's exactly, that is what you do. That's how you get your shots off on Twitter. If there were a twitter.com handbook like, hey, here's how you do it, here's how you have fun with it, take some little jabs, which is really what this was made for in the first place, that's teach tape film, as they would say. Teach tape film. Kept your hips right in line, swivel, got your head turned around when the ball came up, didn't touch the receiver, swatted the ball away. That's teach tape how you tweet, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. And that, man, when I tell you, I know you're rolling your eyes a little bit like, what was really the reaction to this, John? So some Oklahoma fans were like upset in the comments. No, lots of Oklahoma media members took this far too seriously, okay? I don't really know John Hoover, so I don't do this to call him out, but he was the one that I saw wrote a column that I just, frankly, I don't know how you live your life this seriously all the time, but here's what he said. But for the Big 12 Conference to seemingly try to whitewash over OU's history as a Big 12 member and suddenly act like Oklahoma football isn't really all that great. The Big 12 tried to whitewash OU's history as a Big 12 member with like 80 characters on twitter.com is a gross recollection of history at best. Okay, we're starting at a gross recollection of history and an immature potshot at worst, certainly unbefitting a statement from a Power 4 conference's official social media feed. Now, I didn't take the time to go through, and I probably should have, every Oklahoma football official account post-game tweet, because what do we see every week across college football? The official accounts of teams take little shots exactly like that. They make cute little graphics and videos that are poking fun at the opponent. And I'm quite certain Oklahoma football has done the same thing because it's Twitter, dude. It's Twitter. Like, this is not rocket science. This is not a brain surgeon popping off a joke in the middle of surgery, man. Crazy. Do I even need to say, have you seen what the Twitter accounts of our elected officials at the highest levels are popping off these days? Okay, bro, decorum. There is not decorum needed from a conference's Twitter account. Man, the SEC, all that Sankey has tweeted when all the playoff stuff was going on about the SEC last year, and they're making this push. Like, come on, man. Yeah, like Lane Kiffin unbefitting of a head coach. No, he's on Twitter having some fun, man, because that's what we do. I didn't even finish this. The Big 12's unprompted response is unprofessional, unacademic, unappreciative, and sophomoric. Frankly, one of the many reasons that Castiglione and the Sooners have long wanted out of the league. Okay. Well, I would point out what the Big 12 did here is exactly the type of thing that the Big 12 would have never done in the old days when Oklahoma was still in the league. Before Oklahoma left the league, newsflash, the Big 12 did nothing like this because it just sat and lied down and took it whenever anybody was coming. It was a punching bag. Dan Beebe, right? Setting the tone back in those days of just being a total pushover. That would have never happened. That was not the league that Oklahoma was wanting to leave. Nothing was happening like that when Oklahoma was in the league saying, hey, that's why we wanted to leave. No, you wanted to leave because it was a league that just lied down and let itself get beat up over and over and over. Oh, by the way, they did try to expand and do something a little proactive once upon a time. Oklahoma was against it. So thanks for that. Crazy, man. Just let them have fun. And it was great. Like this, probably should have emphasized this point more at the beginning. I just said, what was it? 6 million people saw that tweet? 6.3 million. How often does the Big 12 get that many eyeballs on anything? Not often. Not often. You get the whole college football world talking about you. And you did it. And how much did it cost you? $0. That is, it's perfect. That's what you want. That's what you need out of your social media. You need to shake things up. That's what Brett Yormark has talked about over and over again, being a disruptor, right? That's what Tyrell Kirkham, the CMO of the Big 12, has talked about, being a disruptor. That's what you want to do. It was great. It was great. And if you could just take a chill pill and relax and enjoy a joke and say touche, Oklahoma fans and media, it'll all be okay. I promise you, it'll all be okay. All right? You're going to go play a game against South Carolina. Best of luck to you, Sooners. Enjoy that schedule. I hope you're doing great. Okay? You won a lot of Big 12 games. You won a lot of Big 12 titles. Thank you for that. Nobody's erasing that out of a history book. Okay? Nobody's whitewashing anything. They just want to have a little fun on Twitter. All right? That's it. I promise. Okay? Are we okay? Is everybody okay? Just want to make sure. Chat, are we okay? Have we all recovered from the Big 12's tweet? Maybe I should have NSFW'd that. Not safe for work. Make sure you all were aware of that before I threw it out there, just so you could prepare yourselves. But I hope everybody is all right. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, totally free. Appreciate everybody who does that. OFBnews.com to sign up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. I guess not safe for work warning there. I probably will discuss that tweet in it if you do sign up. So the 5,300 of you that do read the newsletter, I guess it's going to be a sophomoric one. I apologize for that. Let's talk some Holy War. All right. It's been long enough here, deep enough into the show. It's been such an unhinged week that we've gone a half an hour without getting to maybe the biggest Holy War ever. Maybe the biggest Holy War ever. Kyle Whittingham took the Holy War up a notch this week. All right. And look, I absolutely love it. I know it really shook things up. Got people talking. Got some people bothered. I love it, man. It's what makes college football awesome. So obviously, there's a ton of build up to this Holy War game. You've got a couple of ranked teams. It's number 23 against number 15. It is the 97th meeting of all time. You've got like Scott Mitchell. I was reading a quote from Scott Mitchell, who's a former Utah quarterback, a radio analyst for the Utes. He says it is the biggest Holy War of all time. All right. So that's someone who's much more respected in this rivalry in the context of it than I am, quite obviously. He is saying it's the biggest of all time. I heard somebody else say biggest since 2009. Okay, 2009, this was number 19 against number 21. BYU won that game in overtime. So regardless of whether it's the biggest of all time, it is still the biggest matchup between these two teams in quite a while. The reasoning that Scott Mitchell gave, and I think it's totally sound, is like, hey, first time that they've both been in a Power Four conference and legitimately like both playing and competing for a conference title and therefore a spot in the college football playoff. That makes total sense to me that would be enough to say, hey, this has a different kind of significance than any one of these matchups throughout the history of the rivalry. Big Noon is going to be there. A lot of extra hoopla because of that. It's a little bit different in that the teams are meeting in October. It has not happened in 58 years. that these teams have met in October. It is typically an end of the year thing, a November matchup. But you've got all kinds of storylines with this, man. It is rich with storylines. And that's why, like, it doesn't really even need the 23v15 part of this, right? I'm talking about, like, is this the biggest ever? You don't even really need that part of it. All you need is these two teams and the cultural history that exists there to get everything you need out of a great college football rivalry. And, like, that's what makes a great rivalry, is you don't need the stakes. Ohio State, Michigan, I mean, look, that's a great rivalry no matter what. But one of the things you think of with that game is that typically they're really good teams. You don't need those stakes to have a great game here between Utah and BYU. That's why I always use this example as, like, why I love college football and love rivalries. I love the freaking Egg Bowl. How many times has the Egg Bowl been played where it's just pride on the line, dude? But those teams hate each other. They hate each other. Lots of history, lots of differences, tons of hate, crazy things happening. Elijah Moore lifting up his leg and peeing in the end zone and getting a crucial penalty. Like, I love that. I love that. So I want that in my rivalry, right? This one seems to have all of it. And Kyle Whittingham is a big part of it, right? Being a guy starts on the BYU side of things, now is the head coach at Utah, and now is adding to this by, like, refusing to say anything, not even anything positive, but just like anything directly about BYU or even BYU players at the podium. Okay. Let's listen to this. This is wild to me, man. This is wild. So Kyle Whittingham gets asked a question about Bear Bachmeier. It is a very, man, I have sat through a ton of press conferences in my day, 10 years of covering K-State and the Big 12 full time. I mean, I have sat through hundreds and hundreds of press conferences. If I've heard this question once, I've heard it a million times. Just a softball, hey, I need a quote about the best player or one of the spotlight players on the other team. Just give me that. And Kyle Whittingham was having none of it.
What have you seen from BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier? Have you seen?
You know, I'm just going to focus on us this week, our guys, our coaches. So I'm not going to give much thought on the opponent this week. And so, really, you have to ask them, you know, what they think of Bear. So,
I mean, like, okay, all right, like, that is the most softball. That is just, you are beer league. You've got a Miller Lite in one hand, a softball in the other, backwards cap on field 4 at the old Muni, and you just lob an underhand softball up to the plate, and that's how Kyle Whittingham chose to respond to it and answer it. Okay. And shout out, by the way, to my guy, Sean Walker at KSL, who had that clip. And he also has this next clip that I'm going to play for you where he pointed out, it's like, hey, by the way, he's not actually mentioning BYU in this at all when there are opportunities to. But here's another clip of him just talking about the game, and notice what he doesn't say.
Rivalry week, got to go on the road. I guess it's going to be a big noon kickoff will be there, even though it's not the big noon game of the week. They'll be down there, and so we'll have to have a great week of practice as always. Between the two teams, there's a lot of similarities statistically. Both rushing for roughly the same amount, throwing for roughly the same amount, scoring roughly the same amount. Defensively, there's a lot of similarities as well. Both in the upper third of the conference in most of the key stats, and so should make for a great matchup, and away we go.
I mean, it's like BYU is Voldemort, right? Like, you can't say it, won't say it. And, you know, look, I asked some people and heard this has been going on for a while. Like, this is not totally new from Kyle Whittingham. And so I know, like, a lot of people, I'm seeing it, some in the chat right now, people taking shots at Whittingham for doing that. Guys, I'm here to tell you I love it. I'm here to tell you I love it. This is great. This is what makes rivalries awesome, man. Like, I have known about this for a long time, but I experienced it for the first time. Last year, a little over a year ago, I went to Columbus, Ohio. It was in August, so it was right before football season. But I was hanging out there. I went for a concert, and I had some time to kill. So I actually took the stadium tour of Ohio Stadium, and you get to see all the places where they have the M's crossed out, right? And I'm like, dude, that's such a cool, like, rivalry thing. And during Michigan week, people will, like, tape over all the M's in the complex and all that stuff. That's awesome, man. That's why we love this, because there's so much passion where you'd go do crazy, ridiculous things like to that point, to that extent, just because of the rivalry and how much you hate, dislike, whatever term you want to use, the other side. So I think this is actually this is really fun. This is really, really fun that Whittingham is doing this. And it just sparks some extra conversation. Not that BYU and Utah need that at all. I know that Holy War Twitter kind of rages on all the time. You don't need a reason for it, but Kyle Whittingham's giving you a bit of an extra reason to get after it a bit. But I think this is the type of thing we're losing more and more of in college football, because more rivalries get stripped away, like Bedlam, because of conference realignment, and we're just heading toward a more professionalized system. Basically, as fast as Tony Petitti can drag us there, we are heading to a more professionalized type of setup in college football. And as much as we can preserve the culture that has made this sport what it is and why we all love it and why there's so much monetary value in it that's just being recklessly stripped away by a bunch of really greedy people, as much as we can hang on to stuff like this, I think the sport is so much better for it. So I saw that immediately earlier this week, and I was like, oh, this is how rivalry week needs to start, man. That's how you kick it off. Because I think that was on Monday. That was the press conference on Monday. I was like, that is how you kick off rivalry week. Kyle Whittingham, you wily veteran, thank you for this. Thank you. And I know, look, it's not Kalani's talk. Yes, is talking in depth about Dampier and that. Look, it's not Kalani's style. That's totally fine. But you need somebody to do a little bit of this. And hey, if Kyle Whittingham's going to be, you need storylines, you need villains. If Whittingham's going to be a villain for this, so be it, man. That's fine. That's awesome. You need those type of characters in rivalry week. Okay. And hey, it doesn't always work out for the one that goes and talks, right? Remember Cam Rising comments about didn't he say we're going to kick their ass or something like that at Big 12 Media Days? I'm trying to remember what that was a couple of years ago. And that did not work out so well. So anyway, some thoughts there on Kyle Whittingham and the good old rivalry. Let's talk to Norin. What's up, Norin? Norin, thank you. Norin says, rarely catch live, but like your videos and wanted to say thanks. Go Arizona Cats. Hey, Norin, come around more often. We need some more Arizona fans in here. I don't see a ton of Arizona fans, but congratulations on a nice start to the year at 4-2. Obviously, a tough one on Saturday. I feel for you. But your Cats are much improved. I admitted as much after the game. They are better than I thought they were. So congrats on that, Norin. And thank you for your support of the channel. Thank you for being here. Kim, what's up, Kim? Kim says, thanks for doing the usual great live show, John. Love the Holy War. Great rivalry and pub for the Big 12. Indeed it is. And look, the fact that Big Noon is going to the game, love him or hate him. Dave Portnoy was tweeting about the Holy War today and has been talking about it quite a bit this week. It is undoubtedly a publicity win for the Big 12 to have this rivalry, not just have the rivalry in general, but to have it matter, to have it be a big game. That's huge. That's huge for the league. So I definitely love it. You're spot on. It's great for the Big 12, Kim. So thank you for being here, my friend. Alan, what's up, Alan? Alan says, John, a silver lining to this episode is that it may spawn a new Big 12 grudge match. Good luck to Texas Tech. Win the Natty. We look forward to hosting your tortilla-throwing fans in Lawrence. Rock Jock Jayhawk, Alan. Hey, thank you for that, Alan. Yeah, go hang out at the wheel. Throw some tortillas around at the wheel. It'll be a good time. I promise you. I think that's Alan's usual hangout spot. Back in the day, it was the Hawk for me, Alan, when I was a wee college lad trying to get my party on. The Hawk was the one place you could get in without a well, I guess if you had a fake ID. I don't know. I'm trying to remember if I got in there before I turned 21 or not. Anyway, statute of limitations has to be up on that, right? But thank you for being so gracious, Alan. You are correct, Alan, that this could make for more interesting Kansas and Texas Tech matchups in the future, which I don't think is a bad thing for anybody. Yeah. So actually, yes, silver lining there. We'll have a little bit of extra oomph in the next Kansas-Texas Tech game that we get. So I'm here for that. Thank you, Alan. And thank you all for being here. Like the video. subscribe to the channel, totally free. Appreciate you guys doing that. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com. I saw somebody ask, was it Fongwei earlier? Fongwei. Where'd you go? There we go. Fongwei, John, you're going to do a live from the game. I am going to try. If I can find a spot. So I am, I guess, yeah, for those of you that don't know, I will be in Provo for the game on Saturday. My contingency plan, if I'm not able to find a spot to stream like right after the game, which, we'll see. If I'm not able to, I will at the very least try to like pop outside, shoot, 10, 20 minute reaction video for you guys immediately after the game and get it posted. And then I should be, assuming, knock on wood, that there's no issues with flights, I'm supposed to be back in Kansas City by like 5:30 on Sunday. So, I should be able to do the typical live show on Sunday. So I'm going to do my best to get you some unique content out of this. I would love to be able to do a live stream immediately after the game. Hopefully something cool there from the stadium, but we'll see. I will be playing it by ear, and I'm genuinely just really excited to experience the game in and of itself. So, yeah, thank you, Fongwei, for checking in on that. You guys will just have to keep up, or stay tuned. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at JL Kurtz. If you want to follow me to see what's going on throughout the weekend. Where is my last? Yes. Okay. A little more on the Holy War for you guys. And then I've got some Arizona State, Texas Tech thoughts and the rest of the Big 12 weekend. But there's one stat that tells the entire story of this Holy War game in particular and how it's going to go. Okay. And it is a stat that literally made me laugh when I read it. I saw this come across my timeline on Monday and I just laughed. I was like, this is perfect. Okay. There are so many good storylines with this game. It projects to be a great game. You got a 3.5 point favorite in Utah. Obviously, Vegas thinks this is going to be a very close game. And to be honest, I think that line is pretty fair, right? Like 3.5, if you're going to give, I know the old adage has always been like you give 3 points for home field. If you're saying that BYU is about a touchdown, 6.5 points lesser than Utah right now, I wouldn't fight that too much. It's nothing against BYU at all. I still think BYU is a very good team, but Utah has really, they've taken it to a couple of teams. One of them being Arizona State. I know it was Sam Levitt-less Arizona State, but they clocked Arizona State. They clocked West Virginia. We have a common opponent between BYU and Utah. That was West Virginia, and we saw how that went. For both of those teams. Not that that's the be-all, end-all. When you combine that with just my eye test, my eye test tells me that I think Utah is a little bit better right now. You don't have to rely on a true freshman quarterback if you are Utah, though he still has some limitations. But I think that all sounds pretty fair, and I expect a very close game here. But that is just, that is one of a million storylines here. You've got, as I mentioned earlier, you got both teams competing legitimately for a Big 12 title berth, potential college football playoff spot. Both teams, and it's only the second time that they have played as conference mates here. It's the first time that you get that matchup at Lavelle Edwards. And we're coming off of, I haven't heard much talk about this week, but we are coming off of the wild game last year that ended with, I guess not even so, well, it was, controversy for sure, the holding call. Even though I think judging by the multiple alternate angle replays we got, it was the correct call. But it was controversial enough that we got one of the all-time impromptu press conference moments. Like, we're sitting here, I just opened the show today talking about Lance Leipold with an all-time angry, frustrated, emotional, in-the-moment post-game press conference moment. How about Mark Harlan, Utah athletic director last year, and his reaction to the holding call and coming out and saying, like, hey, we were happy to be members of the Big 12, and everything that came from that soundbite and that post-game press conference and the, jawing with the officials after the game, like that was just last year. That was less than a year ago. This is the first time these teams are meeting since then, man. That's a juicy storyline. Could this be, I saw someone mention this in the chat earlier, could this be Kyle Whittingham's last Holy War? Perhaps. Perhaps this will be Kyle Whittingham's last game in a storied rivalry that he's been a monster part of. Does he want to go out with a loss in the Holy War after especially what happened last year when Utah certainly felt like they had that game won? And they more or less did. They more or less did. It was very close, okay? It was very close. But if all that hasn't convinced you that this is going to be a great game, just a knockdown, drag-out game, especially like stylistically, the way these two teams play, right? Like, I've got a stat for you if you don't think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out. But let me just try to convince you by saying, like, what do you think of when you watch both of these teams? Like, these are not like flash style over substance teams. These are like, we're gonna beat you up. We're gonna get down and dirty in the trenches. BYU wants to get LJ Martin going. PFF, I heard say this week, he is top 10 in the country in yards after contact. And Utah's defense actually has not been great in that category. So BYU's definitely going to want and need to get LJ Martin going, because another thing Utah does, they play man coverage more than anybody in the country. They're going to be aggressive, and you're going to have to make some pretty tight throws if you're Bear Bachmeier in this game, and potentially doing it under pressure. You don't want Bear Bachmeier having to do a ton of that. You want to be able to control as much of the game on the ground as you can. I heard Aaron Roderick, BYU offensive coordinator, talking earlier this week about how they do not want to run Bear Bachmeier 22 times every week. That's what they had to do last week, not just because of game flow, but because of the weather. And so I can understand that. But yeah, against BYU or Utah's physical defense, that does seem like recipe for disaster to try and run him 22 times. But you also got to do whatever it takes to go out and win a game. On the other side, I mean, what's the strength of Utah's team? It's the offensive line. They are going to try and maul you. BYU, good luck getting a pass rush. I know that's not really a strength of the Cougars, and you're facing the two best tackles probably in the conference. Two potential future first-round draft picks. Devin Dampier does not want to throw the ball much. He only threw it 12 times last week, and it was a perfect type of game, rush for 100 yards. Like, this will be a physical knockdown, drag-out. That's not a stylistic game that makes you think it's going to be a game that one team blows out the other, right? Turnovers would be the way that happens, which BYU lately has been much more susceptible to. Bear Bachmeier has finally started turning it over 3 times, right, in the last 2 games, and got lucky with another fumble. So that is something to watch out for if it is going to flip that way. But I'll tell you who doesn't think it's going to flip that way. That is Bill Connolly's S&P Plus, because this is what I saw, and I literally started laughing at how on target this seemed, but in like a hilarious way, and you'll understand. All right, so SP Plus, to me, it's my favorite computer ranking system out there. You see a lot of these people use them for betting purposes, whatever it might be. But Bill Connolly at ESPN, he does a great job with it. SP Plus has been around for a long time. It's one of the OGs, at least it feels like to me. So it pumps out a projected score every week for all these games. And it's a computer, so you're not going to get perfect round numbers. So what it points out, or what it pumps out rather, is this for the final score, okay? This is what the final score is projected to be. Utah, 24.4. BYU, 24. Yeah, the final score, Utah 24.4, BYU 24. And I had a BYU fan immediately respond to me when I tweeted this earlier this week and say, man, it is going to be crushing when we lose by 0.4 points. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure it would be. You guys get the idea here, right? It's a computer. But if you were rounding down, it would predict a 24-24 tie between these two teams. It's going to be a knockdown drag-out, man. It is going to be. And to me, this is also where, can BYU make a special teams play? Either side, for that matter. But I think of that because of the Parker Kingston return that helped set up, that was the touchdown drive, right? To tie it against Arizona. Can you pull off some sort of special teams play? Last time I was in Lavelle Edwards Stadium, I saw Parker Kingston have the most ridiculous return touchdown I maybe have ever seen against K-State. So can you pop something like that? Can you do something like that to help Bear Bachmeier from having to do too much? And will Devin Dampier be able to establish himself on the ground to not have to drop back and pass too often and go to the air too much? What's Jack Kelly's health going to be like? Will he play? Will he play at anywhere near 100%? Right? These are the types of storylines that I'm looking at in this game. And I'm incredibly excited. Like I said, if you really pinned me down, I think that line seems pretty fair. I think it's a field goal game one way or the other. And I am a slight lean toward Utah just because I do think they are a slightly better team right now. But it's really hard to account for, one, a rivalry game, and two, home field advantage. And I know that's so cliche, but guys, I mean, we saw it last year. Like, BYU was a considerably better team last year than Utah was. And yet there's BYU in a hole, shadow of its own goal line, literally in its own end zone, fighting for its life and getting a holding call to extend the game before barely being able to pull that one out, right? That's what this type of environment and this type of rivalry will do for you and to you. So I think that does make a massive difference. And much like, look, it's like Brent Venables said, right? This is not the SEC where you're going to have blowouts every week. This is the Big 12 in the Holy War. It's going to be a one-score game. Sorry, Brent. But I am a slight Utah lean. Okay, let me see if I missed any anything. I did not. Oh, great point here, by the way. Yeah, the Keelan Marion kickoff return touchdown last year for BYU absolutely had to have it. They totally lose that game without it. 100%. 100%. I've got some other takes on the rest of the Big 12 weekend. If you have a super chat that you want to get in, you've got 5 to 10 minutes to do it. So this is kind of your 5 to 10 minute warning on that. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who is here. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com to join 5,300 other Big 12 fans who do. And love and appreciate all of you guys who do that. Well, look, we've covered it on the show. There's been a lot going on this week around Texas Tech that has nothing to do with football, right? It has to do with pocket knives and tortillas and all that. So should it be a concern that Tech will be focused going on the road against Arizona State this week? And is Baron Morton going to play? Sam Levitt going to play? Like, how healthy will these two teams be? And does it even matter? Those are the questions I'm asking about the game that is a huge showdown, and it's been overshadowed a little bit, not just because of the ramifications of the Holy War and the fact that is, legit big time rivalry, has that appeal to it, but it's also, again, all the stuff off the field where it's, the Big 12 tweet to Brent Venables, it's Pocketknife Gate, it's everything else. But this, make no mistake, this is a monster game. Tech, a 7.5 point favorite I'm seeing right now. A 7.5 point favorite, 3:00 on Fox. Look, it's at Arizona State, and I will just say, first and foremost, to me, I think the analysis really starts here. We don't have much to talk about if Sam Levitt is not going to play. It seems like he is going to play, and that is the expectation. I saw, let me pull up the tweet. We had a national reporter tweet earlier in the evening. Yeah, it was Matt Zenitz from CBS. He tweets, it's considered likely that Arizona State star QB Sam Levitt will be able to play against Texas Tech on Saturday, sources tell CBS. That's good news, because if they look, nothing against Jeff Sims. It's not just what it does from like a schematic standpoint to Arizona State's offense. It's that Sam Levitt is the heartbeat of that team, man. That's like putting yourself down on the operating table, slicing open your chest, and just ripping out the heart. Just ripping out the heart of Arizona State's team when you take Sam Levitt out of there. Like, to me, it was not just about, hey, Arizona State's offense didn't play well. The whole team, the whole operation was just disjointed, didn't have a spark, didn't have fire. None of that when they were playing in Salt Lake last week. I just think that he is so much like the identity and the personality and heartbeat of that team that if he's not playing, it dramatically changes everything. So they need him. Even if he's not going to be 100% healthy, which I think, it's very clear, he's not going to be 100% healthy. But his presence out there makes a monster difference for that entire team. Being at home will obviously help them a bunch too. And they're going to be motivated and they have pride and they won't want to put forth that same kind of effort that they put last week. But you better worry about the Texas Tech ground game with the way that Utah ran all over Arizona State. Now, a lot of that was with the quarterback, right? That was Devin Dampier. And that's where it gets interesting for Texas Tech because it seems like Baron Morton is trending to play also. Baron Morton is not a guy that's going to run on you a whole ton. Will Hammond is a guy that definitely could, and he ran all over Kansas in the second half last week. And that's what really kind of turned the tide from this being a 4-point game to Texas Tech winning in blowout fashion. So I do wonder if Tech, with a gimpy Baron Morton, with that fact that running the quarterback can be helpful. I don't know. Do you see Will Hammond, whether or not Baron Morton is playing? I would be interested in that. Probably not. I'm sure Tech probably looks at it like, hey, we're good enough. We can just go out and do what we do. But I think that's why if you're talking about, hey, which starting quarterback playing is more important, it is easily Sam Leavitt here. Because if it's Will Hammond, I think Tech just goes out there and you just try and run it down their throat with Dickey and then Will Hammond. You try and replicate what you did to Kansas last week. And even if there is some level of distraction or complacency, something with Texas Tech, I feel like we've already seen, maybe distracted is the wrong word, but just not a sharp team in each of the last two games that they've played against Houston and Kansas, one of which was on the road, and it just hasn't mattered. Like Texas Tech is so good. They're too good to really just slow them down by some sort of this may come back to haunt me. This may come back to haunt Tech if they do play with fire a bunch like this, but they're good enough right now that they don't have to be locked in and totally sharp from the word go. This absolutely feels like a game where Arizona State's got to be 100% dialed in, and they're going to have to get a lot of things working and a lot of things going. Sam Leavitt, when healthy, is definitely shifty enough to make Tech pay, even if their pass rushers are getting home. So I do like his mobility from that standpoint, but he might be limited a little bit here. I don't know. It's hard for me to see Arizona State staying in this all the way home to the end. It would also be wildly fascinating to see what happens if and when that does happen to Texas Tech. It will happen at some point this year where they're going to get pushed into the fourth quarter by somebody. How do they respond if it's in this spot for the first time? We shall see. We shall see. By the way, here's a great stat. I mentioned Will Hammond running the football. Texas Tech in general. So this is not just the quarterbacks running the ball. This stat courtesy of PFF. When Baron Morton is on the field, Texas Tech as a team rushes for 5.3 yards per carry, which is good. Like that's a good, solid number. But they go from 5.3 to 7.5 with Will Hammond on the field. So just the threat of his legs even helps out that backfield a ton. So to my point on, you could probably just run him to death if he's the guy that's going to play quarterback. Real quick, I mean, I think the other two games that I really have my eye on, it's going to be in the early window. Arizona at Houston. These are two teams that I just have really in the same category. I think that they are good, not great, not contender level, but I'm impressed with how much progress they've made. It's two programs that are having very similar years in terms of, taking a big step forward this year. I'm a bit surprised that Arizona is a road favorite in this game right now by 1.5, but I guess that tells you, like, hey, Vegas thinks Arizona is the superior team there. So Houston, you got something to prove. And then Baylor, TCU. Neither of those teams are totally out of it. TCU has completely eliminated its margin for error, but Baylor, even though they're 4-2, I mean, they've lost 2 games, and I know people sort of wrote them off after blowing the Arizona State game, but hey, I mean, Baylor is still very much in this. Baylor is still very, very much in this. So that's, look, TCU is a home favorite. Frankly, having seen both of those teams the last 2 weeks play K-State, I know that it's like TCU was really, really sloppy. I have a hard time trusting them. I'd sure lean Baylor right now in that game. And if Baylor, they could still get hot. And this is a team that remember what happened last year. Everybody wrote them off. Now, they had a worse start last year than they did this year, but everybody wrote them off, and all they did was come charging back. And had they just batted down a Hail Mary in Boulder, Colorado, You know the story. They would have been in the Big 12 championship game last year. So do not count out Baylor. All right. A lot of good games. That are going on this week in the Big 12. You do have West Virginia at UCF, and you've got Cincy at Oklahoma State. I do not anticipate a ton of drama there. I would expect UCF and Cincy to win those games, but we shall see. All right. Loaded show tonight. Thank you guys for being here for it. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com. I may be dropping a little more content for you tomorrow. Got some things up my sleeve, perhaps. And then I'm going to be off to Provo on Friday. So very much looking forward to that. I missed one super chat here. Sorry, Glenn. Glenn Barnes, what happened with the fine money? Glenn, are you asking like what literally will the fine money be used for? The $50,000 that the Big 12 is getting from both parties in Texas Tech and Kansas, or is it just like a general question about like should there have been more fine money? I don't know exactly what the fine money would go to, what the conference will use that for. That's an interesting question. So just go into like the operating budget. I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I wish I had a better answer for you. Okay, Glenn says yes. I wish I had a better answer for you, Glenn. I honestly don't know. Maybe I can ask somebody that. Try to remember that. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all the guys. Thank you for the well wishes and safe travels. I'm very much looking forward to it. I will try to do a live show after the game. We'll see how that goes. I will at least drop some form of content for you around the game, and then should be back in time, assuming no issues with the flights for a live show on Sunday. So take care, everybody. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.